Growing up is strange. When you're little, you're told to be yourself. It sounds simple, right? Be honest, be unique, be you. But as we get older, that message starts to change. Suddenly, being yourself is not enough anymore. You're expected to be something, a goal, a career, or a success story by the time you're 18. And somewhere along the way, you stop exploring who you are and start performing who you think you're supposed to be. As teens, we live in a constant storm of expectations. People ask us what we want to do with our lives before we even know what life really is. We're told to have our paths mapped out, our identity shaped, and our futures planned, all before we even had the chance to live. And that pressure doesn't inspire us. That pressure suffocates us. It teaches us that uncertainty means failure, when in reality, uncertainty is the beginning of growth. We lose ourselves because we're taught to choose too soon. We define ourselves too early. We start building versions of ourselves based on what other people want, what our parents approve of, what social media celebrates, and what society praises. But what if the version everyone expects us to be isn't actually us? What if, in the process of meeting expectations, we start losing the parts that make us real? That's why growing up can feel like you're losing yourself. But maybe that loss isn't tragedy, maybe it's necessary. Losing yourself isn't the end of identity, it's the beginning of self awareness. It's when you take a moment and ask yourself, is this really who I am, or were these parts of me planted by someone else? We like to believe that we have freedom, that our choices define us. But if we take a closer look at these choices, they're merely just illusions. The world tells us we can be anything, but quietly only rewards a few. We scroll through endless versions of success, the perfect routines, the aesthetic lives, and the endless productivity, and we choose not what fulfills us, but what fits in. It's like standing in front of hundreds of doors only to realize they all lead to the same path. True choice isn't about having many choices, it's about knowing yourself deeply enough to choose consciously. That's where real rebellion begins. And real rebellion, isn't about breaking rules for attention, it's about saying no. No to the timelines that rush you, and no to the expectations that shrink you. It's the courage to pause in a world that worships speed, the strength to change direction when everyone else is marching the same way. Rebellion isn't rejection, it's redirection, it's growth. It's when you evolve from who you think you are into who you actually are. And saying no is sometimes the first and bravest step towards saying yes to yourself. And maybe the reason it's so hard to say no is because we've been taught and maybe the reason it's so hard to say no is because we've been taught that pleasing others is equivalent to being kind. But saying no isn't selfish, it's self respect. It's the quiet declaration that your thoughts, your mind, and your time belong to you and only you. So, yes, growing up can feel like losing yourself, but maybe that loss is necessary. Every stage of life strips away an old version of you to uncover something more real. But here's the question, once you've lost yourself, how do you find yourself again? You start small, you spend more time alone, not to isolate, but to listen. You do the things that bring you peace, not applause, even if they don't make sense to anyone else. Surround yourself with the people who see you for who you actually are and not for the illusion that you want to be. Because maybe growing up isn't about finding yourself once and for all. Maybe it's about finding yourself again and again and again. And maybe the first step to doing that is saying no to yourself.